I'm Austin,
I'm Caitlin.
and this is Samuel's story.
I was told by 2 doctors I wasn't going to be able to get pregnant. I was actually sick one week to the point where I was in the ED twice in the same day, and it showed a level that I had a blood clot somewhere. So a bunch of testing was done, and it turns out that level is also high when you're pregnant. So that's actually how we found out I was pregnant. The pregnancy was good. Was like he was growing normally. Everything looked good up until our 17-week anatomy scan. We had a gender reveal party plan and everything. We're gonna find out the gender, and the doctor was taking a lot longer to come back to kind of tell us what the gender was. And she came in and told us he would have trisomy 18, which was incompatible with life. So he would pretty much just be born not breathing, have a stillbirth. He also showed to have a brain issue, and then his long bones weren't growing. She automatically suggested we terminate the pregnancy because he would have no sort of life and it would just be hard on us as a young couple. We were like, wait, hold on a second. So we were like, can we at least confirm that he has trisomy 18 before we go ahead and just terminate the pregnancy? I mean, we weren't going to terminate no matter what, but we actually got in the same day as our anatomy scan for further testing, where they take part of the fluid in my belly, that was in my belly, that has his skin cells on it, to test for all types of genetic disorders. We had a lot of people praying for us, a lot of people, even between the couple hours between we found out, and we had this in between that week. We just had an undescribable sense of peace about it. Like, we automatically gave it up to God. We're like, you're in control. You know what's best. It's hard. It was very hard on both of us to hear like he wasn't gonna make it.
Especially after, like, when you go in for your 6th week to find out that you're actually pregnant and things like that, and to hear and see that he has a heartbeat, and then be told with all these emotions when we're going to plan for that gender reveal party and things like that, that things aren't going to go as we thought they would.
Yeah. So I opened up the results on my phone, because I actually got them before the doctor called me, and it said normal male chromosome analysis. So he had 0 genetic issues, so he didn't have trisomy 18. And we believe that God healed him from that, because they were certain that he was going to be born with that genetic disorder from what they saw on my anatomy scan. And we actually went back for another ultrasound a week or so later, and the brain abnormality was also gone. He was growing. The only problem they saw still was with his heart. So they still offered us termination, unfortunately, several times.
And this is all in Rochester, New York. And I think abortion is legal there until 24 weeks, and it was almost constant that we were pushed by multiple doctors to terminate the pregnancy, and kept saying no, and it got to a point where we had to be really, really firm in saying, we're not terminating, stop asking. We really had to trust God and everything, because it could have been easy to just let all the things that we've been told that could happen and just basically will happen to him if he were born, and we would. It would be hard, and it has been hard.
I personally think it brought us closer together in our marriage and our relationship with God.
Yeah, our lives were chaotic at that point too. Besides the pregnancy, we were both in our senior year of college. That same night that we found out about his defect, it was the first time of many, and it still is now, where we started to pray every night. And we used to pray as a couple, but not until we found out about that did we really felt like we had to pray. And we also had people that were around us that were praying, like prayer warriors, and prayer has shifted everythh.
They actually did an echo while I was still pregnant with him. I think at 20 weeks was our first one, and it showed that he was missing a valve on the right side of his heart at first. So we were again offered termination because He would have to go through a set of at least 3 surgeries within the first 3 years of his life. We went back 2 more times, and those 2 times were more clear of a picture that he was going to be missing actually a ventricle in his heart. So he was going to pretty much be born with half a heart.
Half a working heart.
Yeah, so he didn't really have a source. In utero is okay because there's something called a PDA in the heart, and that is what gives your lungs the blood flow. But as soon as babies are born, that closes, and then there's no source of blood flow to his lungs, so he wouldn't be able to breathe. The rest of the pregnancy, we had ultrasounds 2 or 3 times a week.
And it's funny because she said that she wanted more ultrasounds, and she sure got more ultrasounds.
It was a rough pregnancy, and then I started to get sick. My blood pressure was starting to get high. I think at my 32-week OB visit, my blood pressure was in the extreme range, so I was gonna have to be. So they sent me right to the hospital to get checked out, and they ended up telling me I would need to be on bed rest until he delivered. And I just kept getting sicker and sicker. And within 5 days, I was very sick. I was on the verge of dying. Everything was, all my organs are starting to shut down. So they're like, he needs to come out now. And we were told from the very beginning, if he's delivered prematurely at all, he wasn't going to make it because his lungs weren't going to be developed. He wouldn't be able to grow because he only has half a heart. Yeah, he would develop an intestinal issue which would kill him. My life was on the line, so we were like, you know what, we're just going to deliver. So we had a urgent C-section, I would call it. To everybody's surprise, he actually came out crying, and they took him. NICU was called, so they took him right away. He was actually perfectly, he had a perfect, they call it an AFCAR score, just like any other baby would have for the first 5 minutes, and then after 5 minutes is when he started to go down pretty fast. His vitals started dropping and everything, so they intubated him and brought him to the NICU, but he was stable. He was actually extubated that night. He was born and put on just like a pressure support, CPAP kind of thing. I think he was in the NICU for 63 days. And their main goal was just to grow him because they wouldn't do any kind of heart surgery or cardiac catheterization until first they told us 2 kilograms, and he was born at 1.45 kilograms, so 3 pounds, 3 ounces. Yeah, they told us he wouldn't be able to grow. He would have lung disease and have to have a breathing tube the entire time. None of that was true. He actually was able to, they fed him via an NG tube. He wasn't intubated most of his stay in the NICU. He was on some respiratory support. I mean, he was on a lot of medications to keep that PDA open so he could get blood flow to his lungs. And his goal saturations, normally were 95 to 100% for oxygen. His was 75% to 85%. So he was a little bit on the bluer side. I mean, overall, I feel like the NICU stay was good, except it was about a month after he was born. He just started to deteriorate fast. His oxygen was dropping. It was in the 30s, 40s. They didn't know why, so they emergently intubated him and put him on full support, 100% FiO2, the max support they could on the ventilator, and his oxygen was still in the 50s. The doctors kind of were just standing in the room we don't know what's wrong. We don't seem to be able to figure out what's wrong. So they ended up calling this was at midnight on a Friday, so they ended up calling a cardiologist in, and they did echo on his heart, and that PDA was actually closing. In fact, the cardiologist said it did close. So the fact that he was able to sustain life for that long was another miracle in and of itself. They weren't sure if they were going to be able to blow it back open, but they raised the medication that he was getting through an IV up to I think it was 100 times his original dose to try and blow it back open. And fortunately it did. So they were able to get his PDA back open and stabilize him and extubate him a few days later. We had a lot of scares, and that was definitely one of the scariest.
So his defect is very, very rare. And so that came with things in the NICU at first where they didn't really see this. So that there was a lot of uncertainty on our part, and also even more so on the doctor's part sometimes on knowing what to do. And we really feel like God had a hand in it all. And we're just able to really guide them. And that was like a consistent prayer that we prayed, that God would just guide the doctors, guide their hands, guide their thoughts, guide the team. Eventually he got to the weight that he needed to.
They kept pushing the weight up and up. So it was 2 kilograms, then it was 2.5 kilograms, and then 3 kilograms, and 3.5.
It was just...
So he eventually got there. And then May 23rd of 2024 was the first time he was able to actually go back to get a catheterization of his heart, because they weren't going to do any surgery until they actually were able to stick a camera like in his heart pretty much to see what was going on with his anatomy. Came back intubated because they have to give him anesthesia and stuff for that. He actually started to decompensate again, and they got an emergent x-ray, and one of his lungs had collapsed. So they were able to actually move it. We weren't sure if he was going to be able to get air back in that lung, but fortunately, miraculously, God put that air in his lung, and he was able to breathe again normally. But then a couple hours later, we got the results from the doctor. Came and talked to us and showed us pictures. He pretty much said they don't think they can operate on his heart. They couldn't see his coronary arteries, and that without coronary arteries, they couldn't put him on heart-lung bypass machine to do any of the heart surgeries. And where we were in Rochester, New York, they didn't have the high technology kind of support.
Not a transplant
center. Yeah, it wasn't a transplant
There's
center.
Not all the...
They had one surgeon for all of upstate New York that they used. So it just wasn't reliable. Yeah. And thankfully the surgeon was like, I can't do this, so you're gonna have to go elsewhere. That's when we contacted Levine's Children's in Charlotte. They had one of the best cardiac programs. I think they were rated number 8 or something at the time in the U.S. So I contacted them, and they were like, yeah, we'll take them. Usually, for a New York City hospital, because we were in New York, it would take at least 2 to 3 months to get him there. So it was going to take longer to get him to Charlotte, and it ended up only taking 2 weeks. So he got transferred June 9th of 2024. They immediately, getting pictures of his heart. June 10th, he was taken back for a CT scan to get a CT of his heart. Ended up for the first time actually coding from sedation. He had a history of not breathing with sedation, so he just stops breathing. So we heard outside running around somebody gonna go down there to help? They couldn't. He first went to respiratory rest, so he stopped breathing. And then his heart rate started to drop. I think it starts to get to the 50s in babies, they start CPR right away. So he started CPR, and at first they couldn't get his heart rate up. This was only our first day there, and he had coded. Yeah.
And then the doctor came in and told us that he might have to be put on ECMO. Thankfully, he didn't have to at that point. And he was on a breathing tube. Yeah. And that lasted for a couple of days.
Well, till surgery.
Till surgery.
They saw what they could see was his heart was weak, and that's why he went coded. He couldn't even handle anesthesia from CT scan. Yeah. They're like, we need to do surgery. We need to do something right away. Unfortunately, the surgeon there felt comfortable enough with doing a surgery and not having to put him on bypass. June 14th, 2024, he had his first open heart surgery at 7 a.m. So he went in and put a shunt so that he could have blood flow to his lungs, because the PDA he had was just so unreliable. He also did something with he somehow disconnected his pulmonary arteries and reconnected them to the right place. Yeah. It was crazy. He did that all off heart-lung bypass.
With no blood loss or anything.
Yeah, no blood loss. He was doing well at first, and then all of a sudden he just started to decompensate fast again. So he couldn't really tell what was going on, so they got an echo immediately, and it showed that he developed a clot in the shunt. So
Which he's had a history of clots too.
He had no blood flow to his lungs again. Fortunately, even though they took him off the medication for his PDA to close up, his PDA was open for so long, it still was a little bit open, so he was getting some blood flow, but not a lot.
And that was a choice that the surgeon made, and he
last minute was to keep his PDA in.
Because he was going to take it out. Yeah. And chose to
keep it in for some weird reason.
And there was no real reason why he had to have the PDA. Yeah. So it was
luckily he kept it in.
It was definitely some kind of God thing.
They had to emergently taken back to the cath lab and stent the shunt open. and get rid of the clot. And then he was taken back for his second open heart surgery that night. And then that's when they actually took his PDA out and left his chest open. So his chest was open. We could see his heart beating. It was very weird for 3 days. I think it was over the weekend because the surgeon didn't trust him. So if they needed to do something, then he didn't have to worry about like cutting him open, like breaking his through his sternum again. He could just be right there. Yeah, he was discharged for the first time home on July 18th of 2024. He did good at home. We had to do a lot of monitoring to make sure he was stable, like at home, and talked a lot with his team. But he overall did good.
He had an NG tube, so a tube that goes from his nose down to his stomach. So we had some interesting ways we had to feed him through like a syringe and hold it up at like 2 a.m. and then we spill it on our bed and it smells. So things that parents do, but in a different way, I guess. But overall, he had a great 2 months where we were at home.
Yeah, he was growing well.
Grew well. He got to play. We were able. I actually just started a job shortly after at a school. I told them about him and like what went on, but at that point it was kind of like, oh, we're just waiting for another surgery. When you undergo heart surgery, your coronaries can change and like rewire itself, so your heart can kind of change pathways and make these new ways of blood flowing. And the hope was that his coronaries that were bad would become make better routes.
They thought they did because of how well he was doing at home. So they will just be taking more pictures of the heart for the surgeon to do the second surgery. He was like, there could be a chance you guys have to go transplant route, but with how well he did at home, I'm pretty positive that's not going to be the case. During the procedure, they had to give him a breathing tube again, put him under anesthesia, and he came back this time extubated, but he was having like oxygen problems. Like his sats were a little lower than what they liked them, but they thought maybe it was just the anesthesia wearing off. They wanted us originally to actually stay the night to just make sure he's okay and then send him home in the morning, which thankfully his cardiologist made that decision because on October 1st at 12:04 a.m., all of a sudden I looked on the monitor and his heart rate was dropping. I was like, oh, that can't be real. So I checked it myself and I was like, I looked at him, I said, this is real. And I was holding him like this, and then I put him out in front of me and immediately just saw his eyes rolling in the back of his head. And I looked on the screen and his heart rate was like in the 60s or 70s at this point. And
I had to go run and find help.
I had told him, I said, you need to go get help now because they were taking too long. Like, it was dropping so fast, the monitor hadn't alarmed yet. So they came in the room and immediately started doing CPR on him. We came to find out, actually, they had just transferred a patient up to the observation floor from the cardiac ICU at midnight, which never happens. So there happened to be an ICU nurse practitioner on the floor right next door, an ICU respiratory therapist right next door. That unit's NP was right outside the door. There was an ICU nurse. So the ICU was pretty much already up there. That was another God thing. We're like, he's gonna be okay.
And right next door, right outside the door, just there.
Yeah. So they coded him and got him stable, intubated him and got him stable enough to transfer to the ICU. And we were a mess.
Yeah,
we didn't know
CPR.
What happened. Yeah, we had just seen him get CPR, throwing him around like he was it was crazy. Yeah. Throwing him around like he was a doll. He was transferred downstairs to the cardiac ICU.
And we were put in a room, kind of just not knowing what's going on.
His heart rate kept stabilizing and getting normal, and then it would drop again, so they'd have to start CPR. So it was like a up and down effect. They couldn't stabilize him for a long period of time. We're
trying to get him back and to see if he would somehow just have a breathing tube, but then just said that he's going to be placed on ECMO. And we've heard about that before from the first code, but this was a definite that he was going onto it, and it's basically a machine that does the work of the heart and the lungs.
It's like the maximum life support that you can get.
Yeah, it's like
you can have a heart rate of 0 and your body could still function on ECMO. From where we came from in Rochester, every single baby we saw in ECMO died. Yeah. So we automatically at first were like, this is it, what happened? I don't even remember, but I guess I got mad at the doctors. Like, what did you do to him? Like,
he was just fine at home.
He was fine at home playing less than like 24 hours ago, and now he's on complete life support, about to die. Like, what happened?
We really think that this dark time that we were in at that point was really God just preparing him, giving him some rest, and giving him time to be strong enough to endure what would be next for him. The goal is for him to hopefully just get a little bit better on ECMO. But we were told that after a few days and trialing him off ECMO and things like that, to think about heart transplant, and that could be in our future, like sooner than we think. He was put on the transplant list on October 16th.
And they told us originally they'd give him a week on ECMO. And if he couldn't come off, then they were going to call it a week on ECMO. They trialed him off again. And we had lots of people praying for us. He did great during this trial. He sustained all of his vitals on his own. So he was able to come off ECMO on October 8th of 2024.
Just didn't know what the outcome would be of anything. Like, would he make it? Would he be able to survive these trials and get through them? Would he be able to sustain himself when he's off of ECMO? Like, for a long time, is his heart better than it was? Like, what's his state? And we had no idea.
And we had to stay in the hospital because he needed to be on 2 IV medications to keep his heart functioning. We got the call March 23rd of 2025 that he was going to be receiving his new heart. He had waited 160 days in the ICU for this heart.
Yeah. The hospital has almost been his life.
Yeah.
All that time that he was waiting was just a preparation for something that would help him live like a actual
normal life.
A normal life. I think the part that wows me the most is how we were able to try and make the hospital home and have a lot of her family around, her mom and dad and her sister, just to be there with us almost every day. And while I'm at work, her mom was there with her, and just being with Samuel and the whole family. We get dinner at nighttime and just try and make hospital as home as we could. She was basically had to give up her nursing degree to be with him each day and to care for him. And
there's definitely many times that we caught mistakes and caught issues that they didn't catch that could have cost him his life.
People kept just rallying up. We made a Facebook page for him actually a long time before, which has been a huge help. And just getting his story out to people, just to tell them what's going on.
Ask for prayers.
Just asking for prayer, giving updates on what's going on.
March 23rd of 2025, he received the call that he was going to get we called it his miracle heart. We got the call at 9:35 p.m. and we were told his surgery was going to be the next day. Ended up kept getting pushed back further and further. So he ended up not going in. He ended up going into the OR. We were able to actually walk him down to the OR on March 24th at 11 o'clock at night. And then the new heart, the surgeon told us it was going to be like a 6 to 8 hour surgery. The new heart, I think, was put in around 2 a.m. And he was back in the ICU at 3:30. So it ended up only being like a 3-hour surgery, 3.5 hour surgery, which was another like crazy miracle that they took out his old heart and put in a new heart that quickly.
And he came up with a closed chest that time, which
and they told us
usually doesn't happen.
He had 2 chest tubes and pacing wires that usually they're hooked up to for the first couple of days after transplant, just to make sure the heart is in rhythm. But he came back not on them. They actually said whenever they went to go put the pacing wires and like connect them to the pacing machine, his heart was just the new heart was just competing with it, so they just ended up just taking him off because it was better that way. So he actually ended up never even using the pacing wires, which was crazy. I mean, yeah, his new heart from the very start has just acted like it was his own.
This whole process when you're waiting for transplant, there's no like end in sight. Really, it's a waiting game. It was really hard to try and pray for. We're praying for someone's kid to die, and for our kid to have new life.
Yeah, it was very hard to grasp.
In essence, it is biblical that for something to live, something has to die. So something has to die for something to live, which is kind of the posture we took on it, just praying for the family that they would have peace in it. Constant prayers in many different ways of just praying for him, praying for the family that would donate the heart, praying for the perfect heart for him, that it would not be a waste of a heart. It wouldn't. So, and just praying for the best outcome.
The anesthesiologist who came and checked on us the morning of his surgery, actually told us that heart was on its last couple beats as soon as they put the new heart in. He said as soon as they hooked him up to all the machines in the OR and right before they were going to intubate him, his heart rate actually dropped. So they were actually able to get him on bypass fast enough to take the old heart out and put the new heart in before his heart completely just gave out. He did very well. He impressed everybody. The surgeon came in the next day. They actually able to extubate him that night, so take the breathing tube out in less than 24 hours. Because an hour after he got back from getting a heart transplant, he was trying to take the tube out himself. So they were like, he was more of a danger to keep it in than take it out, so they took it out. He did great. He didn't need oxygen very long. They weaned him off within a day or two. Within a week, the pacing wires came out. We had one hiccup, which caused him to have to stay in the hospital a little bit longer, else he would have been less than 2 weeks post-heart transplant surgery discharged from home. He ended up getting a chylothorax, which is a complication of surgery that we wish didn't happen, but I believe, again, the waiting time, we had to wait a month because he had to be on a low-fat diet, pretty much a no-fat diet. And the formula that they had to feed him was
atrocious.
Disgusting. So he would not eat it by mouth. He was able to gain weight quickly. The next hurdle was actually going to be him being able to take all of his medications by mouth, because with transplant comes a lot of medications. He gets 11 medications a day.
11 times just to get meds.
Yeah, so we had to work on him taking all of them. So he was able to take, we introduced about 1 or 2 a day, and eventually he just took them all by mouth, and he still does.
And eventually then the NG tube came out for the first time, which was...
After 15 months
15
of
months
having an
of
NG tube.
Since day 3 of his life.
Then he was able to go home.
Wire-free.
Yeah, with no tubes, no wires attached to him. He went home May 5th, 2025. It was one of the best days of our life, if not the best day.
We really had built a family there too, with the nurses and doctors and things like that, just being there for so long. Where it just felt normal to walk into an ICU and go see our kid, where you don't want that to feel normal, but it did, and we're thankful for the nurses and staff and that were there and helped take care of him. And it's just one of those things where you won't forget it, for sure.
God definitely saved his life. Like, the medical professionals, doctors can't even explain why he was still here. So like, he's got a purpose, a plan. So like, he's gonna make it through this, and he did.
I think first, try praying, and keep praying, and pray bold prayers. And prayer is one of those ways. One thing that helped us get through a whole lot of the days were having some worship music in his room. Have faith that God can still do miracles, because God still does do miracles. It's not just something that is in the past, because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So if you believe that, then you can trust that he can still do miracles.
So something I like to share for like families going through something similar, that I've kind of like clung to, and I share with now families who went through what we went through, is to have faith, trusting God, and surround yourself with those who are willing to walk through the fight with you. And when you feel like you're at the end of a dark tunnel, don't lose hope. There are better days ahead. It may seem like you're on a roller coaster of life, but at the end of the day, it'll be worth it, because God has a plan and He knows what's best, even if at the time it seems like the worst.
And even if there's a family that's out there that has experienced loss, just knowing that God was still in that, and there's a purpose for that. Just like the child that lost their life to give Samuel his heart, there was a purpose for that. And there was still a purpose for that child's life, and that child has blessed many lives and sustained more lives. And even if it's not a donor that child is, there's still a purpose, and we might not know why, but God knows why. I'm Austin.
I'm Caitlin.
This is Samuel.
And this is Samuel's story.